Hi everyone, I'm John C. Morley, the host of the JMOR Tech Talk Show and Inspirations for Your Life. Hey, how are you doing, everyone? It is John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. It is so great to be with you on the JMOR Tech Talk Show. I know the show's recorded a little bit late this week. We've had a lot going on, so we're catching up. This is actually Friday's show, April 12th. So great to be with you guys here on the JMOR Tech Talk Show, the weekly tech show that talks all about technology, what you need to know and to be aware of so that you can live a better life using technology. All right, guys. So I do want to thank you for being here, whether you're here at this time or another time or 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. or 12 noon or 12 a.m. It doesn't matter. Thanks so much for being here. And so our topic for the show is, everybody ready for that? Our topic for this show is Ethics Unboxed, Navigating the Moral Terrain of Artificial Intelligence, Series 3, which means we're in our third year, and we're on show number 15. Show number 15. That's pretty cool, right? That we're on show number 15. And I think it's pretty neat that we're able to do this. We got a lot to share with you. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that the media sometimes pushes things crazy, right? They pushes things all over the place. So our intro tonight is basically letting you know that we have some amazing things from around the world to some local companies to just some things about technology. We're going to talk a lot about AI tonight. That's going to come up with a lot of different places tonight. So let's get right into the show, shall we? All right. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight is the cybersecurity breach, how a near-miss attack unsettled the U.S. tech industry. So what happened? Well, the big issue, ladies and gentlemen, is that they were basically scared. All right. They were scared because what happened is, they didn't get in. Okay. That's one thing. They did not get in. But I will tell you this. They were getting experience. They were getting experience. And with them getting experience, I think that's an amazing thing because now, see, they're ready to go to another level and they're preparing. So you might say, well, gee, John, nothing really happened, right? But they got a lot of knowledge, and that knowledge actually will potentially, let's say, take them to a point where they might be able to actually cause an attack. Now, it didn't happen and nothing was stolen, but I'm telling you that an attack could have resulted. Next time an attack will happen, if we're not very vigilant about, what we're doing. I think that is the most important thing, is to be vigilant. Okay, that is probably the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, the most important thing. So thinking about in terms of, what's going on and thinking about what's going on in our world, this misattack really put cyber companies, they put them on edge. It put them on edge. And this edge is making them, let's say, extremely, extremely nervous. Extremely, extremely nervous. And so, again, thinking about the fact that nothing was taken, right? Nothing was taken, but they did gain a lot. They did gain a lot. And what they gained well, is something that could be priceless. Something that could be priceless, something that could take people to have to fear. And we don't want that. But the fact that they let them get in, I think that was a huge, huge problem. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on because if people get pushed because of fear, right, then challenges result. And companies do this. They do this all the time. You might say, well, John, why are they doing this? Well, they're doing it because they can. And if they can, then they're going to fear people, right? They're going to fear people. And what'll happen is people will start to retaliate. People will get scared. And this can affect our economy, ladies and gentlemen. It can affect our economy. So, how is it that we deal with this? Well, I think one thing we have to do is we have to brace ourselves so that, we don't have something like this again. I think that's our big thing. The next topic I want to talk about tonight is going to be the U.S. demanding that chip making giant ASML stop servicing some equipment it has sold to the Chinese customers. This was pretty amazing that the U.S. now demands ASML not to help the Chinese. And the thing about it is, first you're probably saying, well, gee, they're not going to really follow suit, but they are. And so the Dutch government is going to comply with the U.S. service ban to requests for Chinese ASML customers. They're going to comply with it 100%. And I think the fact that they're doing that tells us in the U.S. that, they want to do the right thing. But the U.S. is getting serious, ladies and gentlemen, about what's going on in the world. And if things are going on in the world, then they got to be at the top of them, not the bottom of them, right? And so we know that threats can span not just locally, but cross borders, internationally, and through many different countries. The question is, what do we do? So the U.S. government asked allies to stop domestic chip companies maintaining equipment in China. And they are stopping basically companies like the chip-making giant ASML to stop servicing some equipment it has sold to Chinese customers. So I think that's a big thing. And right now you might be saying, John, I don't know if that's going to have an impact. Well, it will. It will. As long as no one else is the weakest link in the chain, I think that's probably the best thing, right? I will say that it's about how the infrastructure is working. Okay. That's what it's about. It's about how the infrastructure is working. And I feel that this is going to make a big difference to how things go forward. And you might say, John, I don't know what this is going to do to me. Well, it's not what it's going to do today, ladies and gentlemen. It's what it's going to do in the future. Let me say that again. It's what it's going to do in the future. Okay, that is probably the biggest thing I've got to share with you. So now if we know these things and we know what's going on, we can be a little more challenged, right? We can be a little more challenged with what's happening and the fact that we have to be prepared for what's going on. All right, so another thing I want to talk about tonight is the fact that tech giants are cutting corners to harvest data for AI. Did you know that? Yes. So many tech giants are cutting corners to harvest AI data. Now, you might say, John, well, how is this even going on? Well, according to the New York Times, we've got many, many companies out there, unfortunately, that are doing this, and they're not acting in a responsible way. We're talking about companies like OpenAI, Google, YouTube, just to name a few. And the thing is, They're violating corporate policies. I don't know if you know this, but not too long ago, Google broadened its terms of services. And one motivation for the change, according to the members of the company's privacy team, an internal message viewed by the Times, was to allow Google to be able to tap publicly available documents, restaurant views on Google Maps, and other online material for more of its AI products. So we know that Google is getting themselves in a lot of trouble. I don't just mean a little trouble. I mean a lot of trouble. And you're probably saying, well, gee, how is all this happening? Why is all this happening? And I think the biggest thing I can tell you is that Google is getting cut with their hand in the cookie jar. They are getting hit with their hand in the cookie jar. And because of this, they're getting penalized. And, it's not just the fact that they're getting penalized, but it's the fact that other companies are not going to be able to do what they're doing. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I can tell you. But just because these big companies are doing it, don't think they're going to get away with it. Many colleges are looking at this right now, and the amount of data that's scaling is crucial. Leading chatbot systems, we learned from pools of digital text spanning as many as 3 trillion words, or about twice the number of words stored in the Oxford University's Boolean library. That's a lot of words, ladies and gentlemen. And, collected manuscripts since 1602. And so I think the issue is that not the fact that AI can do things, but it's still the accountability. Like, what is AI about? Is AI just grabbing things, doesn't know what it's showing? It's kind of like if you were a manager, an office manager, let's say, in a small or large doctor's office, or maybe even a different kind of office. You have to be careful about your payroll data, right? So you can't let everybody else access your payroll data. Same thing. You've got to be cognizant about what you're actually sending. That's probably the most important thing I can tell you, is you've got to be cognizant about what you are sending. And if you are cognizant about what you're sending, then people will start to have respect for what you're doing. Let me say that again. People will start to have respect for what you're doing. And if people have respect, now that starts to build. It starts to compound. Okay? Starts to compound. And when it does, the view switches. The perception changes. I think a lot of people just do what the Joneses are doing. And you know the old philosophy of that, right? The Joneses, because whatever the Joneses do, everybody else has got to do. But it's not about the Joneses. It's about doing what's right in your world. I mean, that's the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen. It's about doing what's right. And if you can't do what's right and do things like breaking corporate policies, breaking security, let's say mandates, all because you're trying to capture data to propel an engine that you believe is going to make you guys, let's say, more powerful than anything else in the world. You're going to eventually have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to have a problem. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to happen maybe today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But I can tell you it will happen. And when it happens, it's going to blow your minds. It is going to blow your minds. And I say this to you because no one really knows what's happening until they actually know. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean that when something becomes a problem, then suddenly it's like now everybody's alert to what's going on. Okay? That's what happens. It happens in that manner. But if we are not cognizant about what is going on, then how can we go to that next level, that next step? I mean, how can we do it? I think that's really the big question. So just because the big tech giants are doing it, don't think they're going to get away with it, because they're going to get hit with some very, very big fines. I can promise you. Might not be right away, but it is going to happen. And Don't say I didn't tell you so, but it is happening. So we're already seeing the domino effect with Google and Facebook and Meta. And by the way, they're also in that list of exploiting this and gathering AI data. And so when we collect data, whether it's manually or electronically, we have a diligence to actually make sure that that data is processed in a manner that is of the highest level of integrity, and it doesn't compromise things like HIPAA, health insurance, a Portability and Accountability Act, right? We have a responsibility to make sure that we are doing the right for everyone by keeping everyone protected and their information. All right, so another interesting story that I want to share with you guys, and that is Google. Well, yeah. So Google sues crypto scammers for uploading fake apps to the Android App Store to $100,000 frauded globally. These are crypto scammers. And the fact that Google's doing this, see, Google feels that, they've been getting sued left and right. And I think they're hoping that maybe they're going to get a little bit of, some kind juice because they're doing this. Well, I got news for you, Google. Just because you're trying to, let's say do the right thing, is it going to save you from all the bad things that you've done in the past? It's not going to save you. And if it's not going to save you, then I feel you have to be consistent all the time, not just because somebody's saying to be consistent. Does that make sense? You've got to be consistent because you want to be consistent. Because you want to be consistent. That's really the name of the game. Okay? You've got to do it because you want to be consistent. And you might be saying, hey, why? Well, it's because you can. And that's why it's being done. And so if we think about what's going on, right, and we think about all the things that have been happening, how do we combat the challenges that we've been having? I mean, how do we even address that? I think we have to realize that everyone needs to be accountable. Everybody needs to be accountable. I'm not talking about just one person. I'm talking about everybody. And that's a very, very big problem. It's a very, very, very big problem. And so you might ask why or how or when. And the thing I want to tell you is that it's going to hit you in the face. And the reason it's going to hit you in the face is because you're not going to be prepared for it. We all know what happened when, these let's say IoT companies got caught with their pants down. And basically what I mean by that is that they got hit with all these things, like the things that happened with the kids and them hacking that app and then being able to, let's say, try to befriend these kids. That was a real problem. I'm talking about a real problem, not a minor problem. I'm talking about a real problem. And that problem is something that I believe most people would be wanting to be alert about. Okay? And if people are more, let's say, aware of the situation, I'll tell people to be hyperactive. But if they're aware of what's going on, then I feel we're going to be able to mitigate the risks. And the fact that Google is doing this, they're doing this right now. I'm going to tell you why. To set an example. They're doing it to set an example. See, because once Google starts doing this, which they are, other companies are going to jump in, and guess what? They're going to do it too. They're going to do it too. And that might sound a little bit crazy. but it's the truth. It's absolutely the truth. I think people right now are looking for answers. And Google is trying to, because Google got stuck with their hand in the cookie jar. They got stuck in the mud many times, not just once, but several times. And because they did, they have lost their level of, let's say, respect. They've lost their level of respect. And if they lost their level of respect, then people may stop using their services, right? They may not be as inclined to use their services. And we know how Google's been operating. They haven't been great. They've been really bad. And maybe Google thinks that they're going to get a magic bullet. Well, I got news for you, Google. You're not. You're not going to escape the wrath of what you've done wrong. You're not going to escape the wrath of what the European Union has up their sleeve for you. You're just not. See, just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean that you're going to get off scot-free. Hey, thanks so much. I really do appreciate it. I got a quote here. Jesus loves you. I'm going to head and pop that on the screen. Thank you so much, DMV Charles, too. It says, Jesus loves you. Jesus is the only way to heaven. Please give your life to him. Yes, I do, DMV Charles. Very grateful for my life and for everything that our Lord has done for me and the Father. Very, very grateful. So thank you so much for doing that. I also do another program with a pastor that's on Sunday nights. And we talk all about God's word and things like that. So very grateful. So thank you so much for joining us. I believe it was from Twitch. Thank you so much for doing that. But I want people to know that just because they seem like they're top kingpin now doesn't mean they're going to stay kingpin. Doesn't mean that. They could be pulled down immediately. And you might be saying, well, what do I do? I think what we have to do is not trust them so much. If we stop trusting them, we're going to find out that they're going to start having to follow the rule, right? What's the rule? The rule is what other people are doing. And I think if we understand that philosophy, and now that we know that other people like Google and other companies, they're getting in a lot of trouble, ladies and gentlemen. They're getting in a lot of trouble. And by getting in a lot of trouble, they think they can just pay money. I got news for you. They can't. I don't care what money they have. They cannot buy their way out of this. They're getting fined up the yin-yang, right? They're getting fined up the yin-yang. And I feel that that's a big problem. And if they're getting fined up the yin-yang, then what's going to happen? I think eventually they're going to have to conform to what's being asked. So, Google always does everything the way they want. And they believe right now that because they're going after these people and they're trying to do the right thing, that they're going to be protected. I got news for you, Google. You're not going to be protected. Don't do the right thing just because other people are watching you. Do the right thing every day of your life. That is so key, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move on to our next topic. We have quite a few topics left. Ransomware gangs are targeting backups to maximize profits. So in the past, the the ransomware gangs had been going after lots of different targets. But, they never seemed to go after the backup. They would go after the business's assets, but they wouldn't go up directly to the backup. So now they might be, let's say, going after the master, and then they're actually damaging the backup so they can't get things back. And I feel that that's a huge, huge problem. I mean, it's a huge problem. And that huge problem is the fact that people need to be aware of what's going on. I think what's happening in our world right now is everyone feels that, they're not going to be at risk. And I am always under the impression that we have to keep our game up. It's not a question of if, but when, if we're not properly protected, which is why we employ and deploy so many different protection systems. And we've got to be vigilant about these protection systems. I mean, we have to be. If we're not, then how are we ever going to go anywhere? How are we going to do anything? And I think the big thing comes down to the fact that we understand that ransomware is a threat. Some people don't. So I think it's good that we understand that ransomware is definitely a threat. But it's different, right? Different for a lot of people. I think if we can know that the big guys that have a lot of money are not the ones we should follow because they have a lot of money, we need to follow the companies that are doing the right thing. And ransomware is now targeting all kinds of things, from schools to hospitals, doctors' offices, but they're going after the head backup source, something they never did before. They're now doing that. That's a big problem. And just think about it. If you don't have your data, well, guess what? You don't have your business. If you don't have your data, you do not have your business. If you don't have your data, you don't have your business. Think about that for a moment. You could spend all this money, but if you don't have your data, how are you going to get your business back? How? That's what I want to know. How? And the answer might be you think you're going to, but you're really not. And I believe that as we progress, we're going to learn things. Some of them are going to be from expensive lessons. And these lessons might be things that affect us directly, and they might be things that affect friends and family around us and loved ones, right? That's got to mean something. So I think we have to be understanding, and we also have to know that just because you're a great big company doesn't mean that you are the fearless leader that we should be following. All right. So I just want you to be aware that the ransomware gangs are now getting smart, and they now know that you can just go back to your backup. They're now going to try to go after your backup. So what does that mean? That means that your backup better be somewhere secure and not easily accessible on the network. It should be password protected, and it should be offline from the outside world. So that if there's another net, let's say inside, and it's a different subnet, we want to make it hard for them to get to it. So you can still access it from your machine, but it's something that wouldn't be directly obvious. Like your router knows how to get there, but something that the outside world wouldn't know. So I think that's pretty cool. More on AI. So there's a company now for medical documentation, and they are called Augmedix. 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 So Augmedix is a company that basically provides documentation for physicians and hospitals. They provide documentation for physicians and hospitals. And so now the doctor can spend more time with the patient, but also they can make sure things are done correctly. But I still feel that a human needs to go through and check some things, because I don't believe that this is enough. Okay. They have lots of different products that they have out there. They have a product basically that can capture things like you asking the patient questions. When the doctor asks the questions, the Augmedix Go actually can listen in. So it could be an app on your phone. The note can be available to the emergency hospital staff for the clinician to review and sign off on. So that's one of their products. They have other products too, like they have Augmedix Live. Augmedix Live is another system they have. And their goal with Augmedix Live is they really want to create that connection with the patient. Okay. Providing synchronous two-way communication with a specially trained medical documentation specialist, capturing key medical information using automatic speech recognition, offering customizable solutions to fit your needs, and serving every ability, they believe, in the medical clinics, from hospitals, emergency departments, urgent care clinics, home visits, telemedicine, point-to-point care for orders and referrals, and experience with 50-plus EHR systems. HIPAA compliant, high trust, risk-based 2-year R2 certification. So let's talk about this. So what is high trust certification? So high trust certification basically offers assessment certification based on the high trust framework, which is a comprehensive and flexible approach to compliance and risk management. And this is what a lot of medical facilities are using, because they don't want to get stuck with something being done wrong. Now, here's what I want to chat with you about. Some teachers are now using AI to grade essays. You're like, well, that seems pretty cool. Yeah, that's great. But now we've got students that are using AI to write their essays. And let's just say this isn't playing very well. So it's good to use AI to help you refine what you're doing, but you shouldn't use AI to, let's say, be a be-all, end-all. You know what I'm saying? It's good to get you on the right track. It's good to help you do all kinds of amazing things. But it's there because you are able to capture certain data. Okay? Because you're able to capture certain data. And because you're able to capture certain data, this is what I believe makes a difference. And if it makes a difference, ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty amazing, right? You might be asking me a question of, hey, John, like, what's this going to happen? So what's the solution? I think we have to put some strict standards in schools. So schools can be not only alert what's going on, but they're also going to be cognizant, and they're going to be part of their rule books. Because to be honest with you, using like a ChatGPT or other AI, that's really cheating. That's a big problem. All right. This is one that I'm really happy to share. IBM recently put in Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute as IBM unveils the world's first IBM Quantum System, now celebrating IBM's 200 years of first. So, that's definitely a pretty cool thing. But the thing about this that I think is the most, I'm going to say that's the most interesting to me, is the way they did this. I mean, this was previously a cathedral. And this picture looks, when I say amazing, it looks amazing. It looks so like high tech. And they put this in something that they would be calling a church. And I think that's, pretty amazing that actually is being done. And hopefully a lot of people will find value at Rensselaer. But the biggest thing is that they're working with colleges and other universities because they want to get this technology out. Okay, they want to get the technology out, and by getting the technology out, it has a huge benefit to the rest of the world. Right? We get into research and development and lots of other things. But if we don't, let's say, understand how this technology is helping us grow, then how can we grow? Right? I think people sometimes don't quite understand what our world is doing. And if people don't understand what our world is doing, they're going to be very, very confused. And so what that means in English is that we have to be a filter, because the stuff we're seeing is not really the way it is. It's not the way it really is. I want to ask you a question. When you think about technology, when you think about, let's say, this whole thing with the Rensselaer and what it's doing, it gets us to think that we have different ways to solve problems. But just like any device we have, technology can be good and it can be bad. AI can be good and it can be bad. One person the other day had said to me, John, AI is just all about manipulating code so that it can basically follow out what people's programming was done based on their own ethics. Unfortunately, some of the people coding don't have great ethics. Yeah, that's a very, very big problem. They do not have the ethics. Is it because they want more money? Is it because they don't know what ethics really are? Right? What's the real reason? What is the real reason? And I think the reason comes down to the fact that we're all wanting to take something to another level. We all want to do that, right? But when we take something to another level, we know that there are challenges in our lives. We know that. So how do we go from point A to point B? Very simple. We've got to be able to decipher things. If we can decipher, then we're able to logically choose the right path. Okay? Does that make sense with everybody or no? I'm just asking that question. And if it makes you understand that maybe artificial intelligence is about having a different thought process. It's a different thought process. What does that really mean to you? I think it means that we can't just be firing something away because we think it's the best thing. It may not be the best thing. It could be the worst thing for us. I think just understanding that we have an I'm going to say we have an ethical responsibility to write code in a way that will help others. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. I think if we can just put a little bit of thought into this, and when we do that, we'll start to realize that artificial intelligence is not about some spooky thing. It's about following code and then controlling access to what something can do and what something can't do. That's the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we got more topics. More to know about the AT&T debriefing. I think that was just a whole mess, if you ask me. I mean, a big, big mess. And when I say it's a big mess, over 72, 73 million records. That was just incredible that happened, right? Incredible. And so knowing that artificial intelligence, okay, is a power, okay? It's a power that people are afraid of because they don't know how it works. They don't know how it works. And if they don't know how it works, how are they ever going to do what's necessary? Right? How are they ever going to do what's necessary? AT&T's data breach is a big, big problem. And now AT&T has said they don't know whether the problem started internally or externally. They have no idea. I think if we were to just think about this logically, AT&T screwed up. And the important thing that I think everyone needs to know for the millions of current and former AT&T customers that were recently hacked and likely had their personal identification, like their name, the social security number, stolen. It caused the level of trust for people that use AT&T to be, let's say, it's the latest cyber attack AT&T has experienced since the leak in January 2023 that affected 9 million users. This one affected 73 million users. That is pretty crazy, right? I mean, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely crazy. I know that you're probably saying, John, this AT&T thing was a mess. Okay? And, you know, 73 million current and former AT&T account holders, big problem. 7.6 million, we just learned, were current customers, okay? And 65.4 million were former AT&T customers. I know that you're probably saying, John, you know, AT&T did everything they can. Well, they are now agreeing to pay for credit monitoring for the people whose accounts got compromised. And the latest investigation in the breach, they haven't disclosed details about the investigation yet, but they're saying it's a time-consuming process, according to Kevin Powers, who is the founding director of the Master of Science in Cybersecurity Policy and basically the governance programs at Boston College. So they realized that they needed help. You know, that they realized that they needed help. They knew they needed help. They obviously knew that. And you might be saying, you know, like how or why, right? Um, I think a lot of people don't understand. I know that AT&T could have done more. They said they don't know where the attack came from, and they told many people this. Uh, but there's still a problem, and they got to take accountability. So AT&T will now have to scrub out any malware out of their software that runs its customers' account systems, while keeping the system running for customers who weren't impacted, because we got to make sure they don't get knocked up. And these steps will have to be shared with lawyers, outside consultants, and likely officials from the Federal Trade Commission, because AT&T is a publicly traded company. So what's the best way to protect my personal information? Freeze your credit report at all three major agencies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and sign up for 24/7 credit monitoring and enable two-factor authentication on your AT&T account. That's the best thing you can do. That'll protect it. But it can be an issue because they can still get hacked. And I feel that AT&T, although they've made a good olive branch offering, I'm impressed. The words that come to my mind are shame on you. Shame on you. I think AT&T could have done better. And unfortunately, there's much we know. But again, just because they have a big name doesn't mean that they know what they're doing. And I got a few more stories for you. So Google is about to destroy billions of data records to settle an incognito lawsuit of more than $5 billion. I mean, that's like crazy. And we all know what they were doing. And so Google's going to destroy this data because they had a real screw up with the incognito thing of their browser still tracking data on people. That's just pitiful. And this just basically tells me that I've lost a lot of trust for Google. Regardless of how much money or revenue they take in, I've lost. What does that mean to you when I say that? I think it means that Google's got to start stepping up. And Google and other companies are going to start getting burned. I got to warn you with this. Our last story for the night is there are challenges some people are having with eSIMs. And you might say, John, what the heck are that? What are the challenges that people are having with eSIMs? So, first thing about an eSIM, which is a little different. First thing I want to let you know is the SIM card is going away. The pros of the eSIM is that they're more reliable. You can't lose your eSIM. Doesn't need to be cut to an exact size. It won't wear out. You don't need to go to a store and buy one like in the old days. No need to wait for a company to send you one out either. And people have been using now eSIMs for a while, and you can now do remote provisioning. You can delete an eSIM from your phone, and then you have to scan the code and get it back again. So that can be obviously done. But it's interesting to know what's happening, and I think that's the biggest thing is like what's actually happening. And I feel that the biggest challenge is people just see it as different. Like, well, where does my eSIM go? It doesn't go anywhere. It's a piece of software, basically, firmware that goes into your phone that you get from a QR code that you scan. So the phone can be provisioned very easily. So you can change an eSIM very, very easily without having to do any hardware changes. So the thing about now that an eSIM is always present, you always have to be connected to a network once you're provisioned. So you have to be connected to a Wi-Fi to be able to turn your phone on. This causes a lot of complications for people. Another problem for some will be hacking. I wouldn't say that there's going to be a huge battle of hackers in eSIM security stands, but it could happen. Embedding it, though, it may be an eSIM is a physical chip versus the physical chip, which makes hacking very difficult. So now it's software, which makes it easier. And operators will need to be concerned about provisioning, exchanging configuration data, and all kinds of stuff, which could compromise people's accounts, integrity, and billing, and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to move toward the eSIM. And it's a sign of our times that technology is improving our lives. But I think we got to make sure that when we move forward, that we're doing the right thing and that we have the safeguards in place. I see so much technology being rolled out each day, and it's pushed to the market so quick to get money. But it isn't really thoroughly thought through. Ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It's been a privilege, been a pleasure, been an honor to be with you this fantastic, wonderful evening. I hope you like, love, support the channel. Comment below, tag your friends, colleagues, associates, share that with everyone you know. Go to my TikTok, follow that. Go to believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. And I might catch you guys when? Oh, you know when. On another JMOR Tech Talk Show real soon, which will be, yes, next Friday, April 19th. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your week and be well, everyone. Okay. And take care.